The world into which Kyoshi must venture in the two novels about her is a desolate and broken one. She never knew she was supposed to be the Avatar. She has no self-confidence. She has no grandiose conception of herself. She is awkward and stilted and confused. Rangi is a knight looking for someone to serve. She is nobler than this world deserves. She adheres intensely and deeply earnestly to the values she believes are right and just. Kyoshi can embody those values. She deeply loves Kyoshi. But what must be noted is that she loves Kyoshi at her best. She loves Kyoshi at her finest. That does not mean she is not physically attracted to Kyoshi. She is. But she has a high standard for Kyoshi. She wants Kyoshi to live up to the ideal that Rangi has in her mind of the person Kyoshi can be. She can be quite demanding, but ultimately, she is not demanding because she's pessimistic or because she's bitter, and she's not even demanding because she really is as hard and as iron-like as she pretends to be. Compared to her mom, Heran, she is kind of a wimp. She's fragile, but she would never tell that to anyone. She wants this to be a world with a hero. Someone noble. Someone majestic. Someone who can restore this amoral, unconnected world to some degree of order, some degree of prosperity, some degree of goodness. And Kyoshi needs someone to believe in her like that. Someone who sees her in a better light than she sees herself. That does not mean that Rangi is delusional about Kyoshi. Far from it. When Kyoshi deserves reproach, Rangi gives it to her. But Rangi is willing to stand up for Kyoshi and support Kyoshi, even when Kyoshi is going through the paroxysms of self-doubt and uncertainty. Kyoshi needs someone like Rangi, who is hard on her but also idealizes her, who deeply loves her even at her most flawed, but wants her to be better and is interested and invested in her becoming better. Someone who is not some opportunist who only cares about Kyoshi insofar as Kyoshi forwards their own schemes, but also is not some inane fanboy or fangirl who only valorizes Kyoshi because Kyoshi is the Avatar. Kyoshi knows that that position can be as much of a curse as it is a blessing. She is anxious about this position. She has a lot of conflicted feelings about it. But Rangi is a kind of North Star. Rangi sees what the Avatar can be for this broken world, for this world that has completely devolved into a Hobbesian, desolate wasteland, bereft of all dignity or purpose, suffused with crime and injustice caused in the name of stopping crime. Rangi believes that Kyoshi can be better than that world. And Kyoshi tries to prove her right. That the rapport between these two is charming and charismatic is obvious. I would like to forward the perhaps controversial opinion that this is the best romantic relationship in the entirety of Avatar. It is certainly the best involving a main character. It is the most robust, it is the most well-developed, it is the most important for how these characters interact with the world around them. It's the most relevant to the stories that are being told. And it is that last aspect that I would like to focus in on. It is not just that this is a beautiful romance, though it is, or that it can be quite funny and wry, though it can be, but that this relationship is important for these two to try to find their way in a world where the idea of there being a certain way, a clear path forward, is rather uncertain. And this is fundamentally different from Avatar, where, yes, there's a lot of complexity and a lot of difficult moral circumstances that must be navigated, but ultimately, the Fire Lord is a bad guy and he must be stopped. It's also different from Korra. Not better than Korra. Korra is about the realization that the standards and values of the past cannot be automatically applied to the present. They do not provide the guidance that one might like. One needs to learn from the past and learn from other perspectives outside one's own limited viewpoint, but do that in order to create and craft one's own perspective and one's own worldview for dealing with a overstimulated, fractured modern world that does not really yield to simplistic or narrowly deterministic solutions. The world of Kyoshi is a bit different. It is a pre-modern world. And specifically, it's based on pre-modern China. The Earth Kingdom is, of course, China, or an analog for such. And speaking as someone who has read a lot of Chinese history and has taken quite a few classes on Chinese history, the portrayal of a world that is fundamentally vast and enormous and decentralized and yet still reft with corruption and uncertainty and unease very much rings true. There is a lack of a strong authoritative government, and in that lack, a lot of petty warlords and other extremists and militias and all these other fanatical groups have come to try to claim power for themselves. But that does not mean the Earth Kingdom or China is not still one thing. These conflicts are not localized. They can spread throughout the land in a lot of difficult and unexpected ways. If rebellion is allowed to fester in one part of the kingdom, it also breaks out in another. It is a world where the two major options seem to be impotence, inefficiency, just gouging oneself on ill-gotten gains while the country falls apart, and authoritative, arguably authoritarian force to keep order. Kyoshi is a character that fits this pre-modern world. She is genuinely a bit harsher than Korra or Aang. She's a bit rougher. She has not had a privileged upbringing, and she knows how cruel the world can be. Yet she's also not this cartoon caricature of vengeance and cruelty that could be inferred simply from looking at her presence in Avatar: The Last Airbender. She is a fully formed person. She is capable of love and tenderness, but she is fundamentally uncomfortable with herself. She knows that no one really wanted her to be the Avatar. She knows she is an inconvenience. And when the guy that everyone said was the Avatar, who was raised as the Avatar, resents her, she understands where that pain and anguish comes from. This is a world where being the Avatar is both a hope for a kind of regeneration or order in the world, a promise of relief from the chaos and the instability that has raged for a long time, and an invitation to deal with the manipulations and cunning of others who only want to use the Avatar for their own benefit. This is a system that Kyoshi feels fundamentally isolated from, especially after Janshu shows his true colors, and she is driven into a place of fundamental deracination, fundamental uprootedness from the world that she once knew, and she's forced to travel. There are two options for Kyoshi, two problems that she could easily fall into. Either not having a clear sense of herself and becoming completely nihilistic, or becoming too much like Janshu, her antagonist, but also her foil. This dark image of the person that she could be. Aang, I cannot imagine under any circumstances becoming some sort of cold-hearted antagonist. Same with Korra. While Korra can be a bit irascible at times, she never has that kind of deep, cold harshness that one sees in, say, the villains of The Legend of Korra, or even a character like Katara, who has that darkness in her. Kyoshi has it too. It is perhaps the easiest way to restore order, through force, through power, and the exercise of such. Rangi believes that Kyoshi can be better than that. She believes that she can be competent, that she can be the best Avatar that she could be, that anyone could be in terms of martial strength, but also a morally upright Avatar. And the fact that Kyoshi does demonstrate these darker sides makes Rangi's insistence that Kyoshi be moral, be good, hold herself to lofty standards, have weight. It is beneficial to Kyoshi that she has someone like Rangi to support her in this way. True, Rangi's moral system is rather rigid, and her constant complaining about dishonorable situations is rather comedic and absurd, especially in the first book when Kyoshi and Rangi spend so much time traveling with outlaws. But such an attempt to hold Kyoshi to this higher moral system is also important for Rangi. In Book 2 especially, we see what the Fire Nation is like in a way that we don't really get as much of a chance of in previous Avatar material. We see the parallels between the culture of Imperial Japan and the culture of the Fire Nation are much clearer in the books. And it's cultural. There is this emphasis on precision, restraint, commitment, accuracy. You have a plan and you execute it with precision with astuteness and you don't deviate. That can accomplish a lot. But it also leads to a kind of rigidness, a kind of adherence to abstract moral systems. The Fire Nation, precise, determined, accurate, lucid in its thinking and in its decision-making, is quite different from the constant chaos of the Earth Kingdom, but is not necessarily better. Rangi can't handle the complete rigidness of the Fire Nation moral system. She cannot be someone like her mom, even as she wants to be. She is secretly more fragile. She's secretly less iron-like and purely committed to her austere facade than she might like to convey to others. She needs someone like Kyoshi, someone she can depend on, someone who is that noble moral figure who can chart a brighter and more just course for the world. It is interrelational. Both are better with each other, and both have a clear understanding of who they are and who they want to be with each other. Think about Heidegger. Think about Mitsein, as Heidegger puts it, which is just German for being with, I suppose would be a way to put it. All being is being with others. All being is in the context of relationships and interactions. Kyoshi is not simply the solitary individual who happens to have to manage relationships with Rangi or more negative relationships with others. Her basic experience of the world, and thus her basic experience of herself and who she is and what she wants for herself, is defined by these interactions. And if she only had these negative interactions with people who antagonize her, or with people who worship her, or with people who don't really want the best for her, she could very easily go down a dark or nihilistic path. Rangi, and that relationship between her and Kyoshi, make Kyoshi a stronger and more thoughtful person. They make her into someone who can lead, or at least attempt to lead, the Earth Kingdom out of this broken, fragmented, rapacious state. Thank you all for watching. If you liked what you saw today, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Patreon if you can, and you want to see more videos like this. Keep watching Avatar, read the Kyoshi books. If you haven't, they're very good. Tune in soon for my next analysis. We'll be coming soon. Promise you that. Thank you all again. Adios, comrades.